When you hear the word psychology, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe a therapist's couch or one of those cool-looking brain scans. Well, those are definitely part of the story, but the full picture? It's a massive, fascinating world. So for the next few minutes, we're going to map out all these different fields of modern psychology. And trust me, you might be surprised by how much of it is already shaping your daily life.
So let's just ask the big question right up front. What is psychology, really? It's a word we throw around all the time, but the definition can feel, well, a little fuzzy, can't it? It seems to cover everything from serious mental health conditions to why we act a certain way in a crowd. And you know what? The reason it feels so broad is because it is.
The key is to realize it's not just one single thing. It's more like a whole universe of interconnected ideas. So our goal right now is pretty simple. We're going to create a clear map to help us and you navigate this universe together.
We'll break our journey down into 4 parts. First, we'll go inside our heads. Then we'll look at us in the world, followed by psychology in action. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the big picture. Ready? Let's do it.
Okay, part 1, inside our heads. This is where we explore the fields that get right down to the nitty-gritty of the individual mind and brain.
In this section, we're going to touch on 4 key areas: clinical, counseling, cognitive, and of course, neuropsychology. Let's get into it.
First up, let's clear up a really common point of confusion. What's the difference between clinical and counseling psychology? Well, think of it like this. Clinical psychology generally focuses on diagnosing and treating mental disorders, like using therapy to treat generalized anxiety disorder. Counseling psychology, on the other hand, is more about helping people navigate life's challenges. You know, things like the stress that comes from a big job change. One often manages illness, while the other helps foster personal growth.
Then we have cognitive psychology, which is basically the science of your thinking. It dives deep into all those invisible mental processes that power our minds, like perception, memory, and how we solve problems. If you've ever been to a workshop that teaches you memory tricks for studying, well, you've seen cognitive psychology in action right there.
And rounding out this section is neuropsychology. This is where the brain literally meets behavior. If you think of cognitive psychology as the mind's software, then neuropsychology is all about the physical hardware, the brain itself. It studies how our brain's structure actually affects how we think and act, which is absolutely critical for things like designing exercises to help a stroke patient recover their abilities.
Okay, so we've looked inward at the individual. Now let's zoom out. For part 2, us in the world. This is all about how we function when we're in groups and in different environments. Here, we're going to explore 4 more really interesting fields: developmental, social, industrial organizational, and environmental psychology. This is all about how we're shaped by the world and the people around us.
First on the list is developmental psychology. This is the ultimate womb-to-tomb field. It's the study of how we grow and change psychologically through our entire lifespan. For example, designing an educational program to help preschoolers learn and build their social skills, that falls right into this field.
Now, have you ever wondered why people act differently in a big group than they do when they're alone? If you have, you're already thinking like a social psychologist. This field looks at how our thoughts and behaviors are influenced by other people. A super relevant application today is creating diversity and inclusion programs to help employees understand their own unconscious biases. And speaking of the workplace, that brings us to industrial organizational psychology, or IOPsych for short. This whole field is about making work better. IO psychologists apply psychological principles to make jobs more satisfying and employees more productive. For instance, by creating training programs to build better leaders and more effective teams. Moving from our offices to the world outside brings us to environmental psychology. This field explores the powerful and often overlooked connection between us and our physical world. Ever just feel better after a walk in a park? That's what they study. Their research can directly influence city planning, advocating for more parks and green spaces precisely because it gives the whole community's mental health a boost.
Okay, so you can see that psychology isn't just theoretical stuff in a textbook. It is highly, highly practical. And that leads us perfectly into our third section, psychology in action, which focuses on fields that are all about solving specific, real-world problems.
In this section, we'll dive into 4 incredibly applied fields: health, forensic, positive, and sports psychology. This is where the theory really hits the pavement. Health psychology explores that deep, undeniable connection between our minds and our bodies. It looks at how our thoughts, behaviors, and especially our stress levels can impact our physical health. A great example is a smoking cessation program that doesn't just tell you to stop, but uses psychological techniques like motivational interviewing to help someone find their own personal reasons to quit for good.
Next, let's step into the courtroom with forensic psychology. This is the fascinating intersection of psychology and the legal system. You might find a forensic psychologist doing something like evaluating a defendant's mental competency to stand trial, which is crucial to making sure the whole legal process is fair.
Now, for a more modern field, we have positive psychology. For a long time, psychology was mostly focused on what's wrong with people. Positive psychology completely flips that script and asks what makes life worth living. It studies our strengths, our happiness, and what helps us flourish. Think of those school workshops that teach kids mindfulness and gratitude. That's positive psychology in action, building resilience from a young age.
And for our final field in this section, let's head to the stadium. Sports psychology is all about the mental game. It recognizes that winning isn't just about physical training, it's about focus, confidence, and staying cool under pressure. A sports psychologist might work with an athlete on visualization techniques, helping them mentally rehearse a perfect performance before they even step onto the field.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground, from the inner workings of a single brain all the way to the dynamics of a courtroom. For our final part, let's just zoom all the way out and take a look at the big picture.
We've just mapped out 12 distinct, specialized fields of psychology. They've all got their own focus, their own tools, their own applications, but for all that diversity, they are all united by one single, powerful, shared goal.
And that goal is this: to understand and to enhance the human experience. Simple as that. Whether it's helping one person overcome anxiety, or designing a better workplace for thousands, or figuring out how to build happier communities, it all comes back to that central mission.
So, as we wrap up, I'll leave you with this final thought. From the design of your office, to the educational theories at your kid's school, to the health advice you get from your doctor, which of these fields is shaping your world right now? Something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.